Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras, in the state, otherwise known as California. But as we all know, I do not do this program by my lonesome.
That's right. My name is Mike Piwowarski, coming to you live from the East Coast. That makes me the co-host with the most from the coast with the most here on the Rundown to a news, conservative views. And Craig, just a tip for you and all our audience members out there. When the show starts, don't look at the lights. Don't look at the lights. I made that mistake, and now I can't even see the camera.
Well, that's okay. We can see you.
Hope it's better than what I got right now. It's a big
Right.
square yellow thing.
So how is your weekend going thus far?
Good. Actually, after we got done with the program yesterday, about 8 o'clock, got called back to work. So did that until about about 12:30, right? And then
Right.
it's like, wow, skip dinner, got to find something. Found an open restaurant. I thought it was going to be a food truck. It was this Latin nightclub, and they served food evidently, and it was ridiculous. It was banging. It was great. Get to practice my Spanish and all that good stuff, but got patted down going in, right? And he found the knife and was happy and didn't even find the guns.
I still remember that time we were in Indianapolis and we went to go into a bar. Now, this, mind you, everybody, this is like the NRA convention is in town, right?
Yes. Yep.
Everyone there is NRA. And the guy is patting down Mike, and the guy's like, "Wait, what's it? We're going into a place. The only place we had gone into where they were frisking in, where they were patting him down."
Well, if you remember, we saw them frisking and decided, oh, let's all go in here.
Yes. He's like, what's this? He's like, you're like, a gun. And then there was like the awkward silence, because you were just like, oh, it's a gun, and he was like,
Yeah.
you were trying to bring a gun in. And I think that happened for like three more people, and finally, dude's like, "Am I being punked?"
Yeah, we're all like, we're legally carrying them. It's just your bar has this weird rule, and we got in that line to show them. Well, just so you know, there's 15 of us here, and if you don't want our money because you want to violate our rights, go somewhere else.
I do distinctly remember that now. Yeah, it was funny. And I'll just say that, being in California, one of the best things about going to, whether it's NRA, whether it's GRPC or SHOT, is going out and being amongst people and where you're not in the minority. I mean, amongst a lot of the people that I deal with here in California, I'm like, my collection, I'll just put it this way, my collection compared to guys like Mike is a starter kit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But people around me think I have an arsenal.
Hold on. You mean my alleged collection? Let's be clear on this. I don't need anybody coming to my house. Right?
I keep forgetting that there was that boat thing, and
we had a flood. We recently had a flood because of the hurricane,
and Lord knows what happened to that collection.
It was a small collection to begin with. It was a very small.
Yeah, we all know that Mike is prone to exaggerations. So it was really small.
What is that supposed to mean?
Nothing. You're a big Trump guy, and we all know Trump is really good at putting dubs on it.
You know what? I like Trump because he's no nonsense. He's not a politician, and I'm not afraid of mean tweets.
You are not afraid of mean. By the way, neither am I.
Yep.
It's highly entertaining. I will say that at least his entertaining was not like I was not. I mean, I was not embarrassed the way I am. I'm embarrassed for this president.
Yeah.
I really am, because it's just like he literally is descending into dementia in front of our eyes. It's almost abusive.
Yep. Absolutely right. Absolutely. My favorite tweet ever of his is Covifi.
Covifi?
Covifi.
Well, my favorite statement that Biden's ever made is "Barakatafkar," or my butt's
Oh yeah,
been
yeah.
wet.
My butt's been wiped. That's a good one. My butt's been wiped. It's no Covifi, that's
It's no
nothing like a
Covifi.
3:30 in the morning tweet, from President Trump. Covifi.
I hear you, sir. I hear you.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the program. Do me a
Oh,
favor.
wow.
Go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsors.
Let's say hey to our good friends at Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net, hitmanindustries.net. If you need yourself an AR barrel, you get your truck on over to hitmanindustries.net. They've got rifle caliber carbines. They got pistol caliber carbine rifles. They got shorties. They got pistols. They got rifles. They got everything. They get additional parts as well. But if you need that AR barrel, now's your time to reach out and get one. hitmanindustries.net. Let's see. Then, of course, we have our good friends at the California Republican Assembly working their butts off this weekend. I mean, they always are, but here it is right before election. So go there, find out who your good candidates are, who they recommend to you, and then, of course, reach out and maybe give them a little helping hand. If you want some awesome combat gear, some tactical gear, some web gear to go out to the field and hunt down the bad guys, or just go hunting, look up our good friends at uscombatgear.com.
Folks, these are the people that make it possible for us to come to you. So do us a favor, go to them, check them out, spend some money with them, become a member, support them in whatever way you can, and make sure you tell them that the guys over at the Rundown sent you. All right, let's get into this one. This was a story that Mike found, and I have to tell you, my only thing I'm mad about this guy, but I'm just mad that I did not find this story because it drives me freaking nuts. So think back to right after Heller and right after McDonald, and think about what judges started to do when it came to the very fact that we said, look, you have a right to own or possess a firearm in your home, right? And they use this one little phrase, right? This one little phrase. And all they did was they said, but you can have, this is not to say that you can't have reasonable regulations. And then they proceeded to ignore everything else that was in the Heller decision. And they just started writing up, basically saying, well, these are reasonable regulations. And they created this test, this way in which to analyze firearms legislation to determine whether or not it violates the law. Well, Supreme Court came back in New York Rifle and Pistol and basically told them, look, no one told you to do that. The way you've been doing it is all wrong. Look, we were here when that decision came down, and y'all are wrong. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you directions. Since you can't seem to understand how to do your job correctly, we're going to tell you how to do your job. All right? One of the things you're going to have to do is that if you are going to violate if you're going to violate the Second Amendment or provide a restriction, something like that, you've got to find evidence that it's allowable, that it was done historically, right? In other words, got to find some historical evidence. In other words, we're going to make you do your job. Well, clearly there are a number of people out there who have an issue with this. Some of them are actually judges, and one of them decided to put his concerns, his issues in writing. So there's a federal judge who basically is blasting the Supreme Court, in CNN's words, for their opinion on the Second Amendment. The fact that they are requiring them to actually look to history in order to support some of these regulations, some of these violations of our constitutional rights. The judge is out of Mississippi. His name is Judge Carlton W. Reeves. And Mike, the reason why this has me so livid is because all the Supreme Court is doing is telling him to do his job.
What do you mean I have to do my job? Why would I want to do that's why I became a federal Democrat appointed judge in Mississippi, so I didn't have to do my job. I just want to wear the robes, Craig, bring back up that the headshot there of the story there. I want to point something out. You see his honor there, Judge Reeves. Craig, he happens to be sitting in front of, what are those things called? Books, law books. Those are all the case, all the statute. I can't tell if it's Southern District or what. I can see everything in there, all the books. Folks, when you become a lawyer, prior to becoming a lawyer, in your pre-law classes, and then when you go to law school, you have to take a class called legal research. Legal research. Now, they're not researching the future, they're researching the past. And guess what researching the past is? That's doing history. That's a historian. So the judge already has this skill. All of the other attorneys have this skill. All of the paralegals have this skill. This is just smoke. This is just a diversion tactic. This is trying to take the light off it, hoping that people don't realize that judges already are historians of the law. It's what they have to do. The entire library is available to them in books. And now, Craig, you could go right on the computer and go, gun case, felony, blah, 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 boom. And every case ever comes up when you sign up for the online legal research platform. This judge is just, again, he's trying to make a political point instead of doing his job, as you pointed out.
Well, and you know what frustrates me in particular with gun cases, and I'm glad to see that they're going back and they're talking about dealing with and making sure that you're addressing history. What I get frustrated with as well is just how little they actually deal with or address the issue of technology. I mean, there are many, many judges who are making decisions who know very little about firearms. I was so impressed when Judge Benitez, who's the judge who basically overturned the magazine ban. He overturned the assault weapons ban in California. Because what he actually did was he had the bailiffs bring in an AR-15. They talked about the technology. They looked at it. They inspected it. And actually, he developed an understanding of how the firearm works so that he could determine whether or not some of the issues or some of the concerns that were being made were in fact true. I've never heard a judge do that before. And you would think when you're dealing with something that is so highly technical as a firearm that they would actually do that. You would think that if you're dealing with something that is, for example, a constitutional amendment, that it would be a given that you would look at the history behind decisions, behind the right, and how the right has been allowed to be exercised. It doesn't seem like a far stretch.
Again, it's legal research. It's case study research. Craig, if you had a Fourth Amendment case for a due process, and a guy says, "Well, listen, I stored it in my safe deposit box, and they went in there without a warrant." Do you think that the judge is just going to go, let me make this up? No, they're going to check for other cases in past history where this has occurred or not, whether it's ever been addressed in law. It's a primary function of a judge and an attorney.
Well, exactly. And anyway, this judge is highly frustrating, and but keep in mind, this guy is on the bench. There are people whose lives, whose rights, in some cases whose livelihoods are in his hands. And he is lamenting because he's being told to do his job and he just doesn't want to do it.
Do you think he's ever been asked or he's ever performed doing the Carlton on the bench?
I was not going to go there, but I did think that. that did cross my mind.
Anybody I know named Carlton, I ask him if they can do the Carlton.
Can you do the Carlton? If you can't do the Carlton, then maybe we're just going to call you Carl.
Yeah, we'll just go with Carl at that point. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
You have not earned the right to be called Carlton.
You have to. You have to dance to be a Carlton. Yeah.
Can't do that. Can't go there. There's legal precedent. Look it up.
Yep. That's right. Do the history. Do the research.
All right. So here in California, there was a law that was passed that basically would call for doctors who put out quote unquote medical misinformation. It would basically call them into question and potentially cause them to be able to lose their license to practice medicine for putting out what the state has deemed to be misinformation. Now, this bill is passed through the legislature, was signed into law by the governor, and now California doctors are actually suing Gavin Newsom as well as the medical board, because, by the way, the medical board approved this, and that's basically what this is. It is in essence what they're doing is they're censoring, right? The oddest part about this piece of legislation, Mike, about the medical issues that they're talking about, is that most of the things that they took exception to, that doctors were saying, we now know to be true. They're a given now. The evidence has already proven that it's true, and yet and still, these doctors under this bill, if this bill had been in place at the beginning of COVID, hundreds of doctors, if not thousands, would have lost their jobs, their livelihoods, for saying what we now know is the truth.
Craig, do you remember when when the COVID started? There was a doctor. She was an African. I think she was African doctor. She was a black woman from Africa. She was a doctor there and was working at a hospital down in Texas. And they were doing a briefing about COVID. And she's the one that got up and said, "Listen, here's the deal. If you got immunities, you do this, you do the right, you do that. It's not going to bother you. It's not going to affect you." She said everything, and everybody went, "Oh man!" And they chastised her and they ring her over the coals. And now here it is 2 years later, and
Well,
she was 100%
yeah.
right.
Specifically, they censored her for her position regarding talking about hydroxychloroquine.
Right.
And the role that it may or may not play. And then what they turned around and they did, the initial studies that they did with hydroxychloroquine, they're, oh, well, we found it to be ineffective because basically they were giving it to people who were already in late stage COVID symptoms.
Yeah.
Now they went back and they did, I think it was something like 14 plus studies. And the last time I remember seeing it was 14 plus studies that showed that if given early on, it did actually help address the symptoms, because in the end, it's the symptoms that wound up killing people. But it did actually address the symptoms. But because she was saying that before any studies were out, she was censored. Now, I know some of you out there
because
are
she
like,
was not from this country, and she had dealt with other infectious viruses before. She had experience dealing with viral issues. So she took that experience and said, if we do this, it'll work. And they were like, no.
And what they were saying is because it was considered off-label usage, and that's what it was, which, by the way, doctors do all the time. They do off-label prescriptions all the time. They were like, oh, you can't do that. And the big reason why, quite frankly, what it really came down to was if there is an effective treatment out there, then they could not get the vaccine fast-tracked. And that was the problem. Right. That's the way kind of the whole process through FDA works, is if there's already a treatment out there that can work, they wouldn't they wouldn't be able to fast track the approval of the vaccine.
Yep.
For those of you who are listening, by the way, I did my air quotes for vaccine.
Oh yeah. She got Fauci'd. So
she did. She got Fauci'd.
Yeah.
But now, like I said, now what they want to do is they want you to lose your license. So if you don't put out what the quote unquote, not even the experts, if you don't put out what the politicians tell you you're supposed to say, if you don't say what the politicians tell you you're supposed to say, then once again, you can lose your livelihood.
That's right.
So anyway, I got a feeling that they're going to wind up losing this one. The state, not the doctors.
Yeah. Let's just hope it gets on a docket soon as an injunction rather than wait 2 years for a lawsuit.
Yes, well, hopefully so. I'm pretty sure they're going to request it, because here's the thing: we don't know when the next major medical issue is going to come up, right?
Right.
Like we could just look at the thing that was the thing, monkeypox, that is no longer a thing. You notice monkeypox just disappeared all of a sudden, right?
Where'd the monkeypox go? Where'd
those monkeypox go? Because I think a grand total of one person actually died of monkeypox. But when they actually came out and said, stop having unprotected sex with people you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden, the number of monkeypox cases went way, way down.
Yeah.
Now, they made it a point to say that in certain communities where that practice tends to be more prevalent, and people frowned on that.
Community would be San Francisco. Yeah.
People frowned on that, but in the end, guess what? It worked. But if we had listened to the doctors, we would have accepted that, or the politicians, we would have accepted it as the next pandemic, and we would all need to wear masks and in order to protect us from the monkeypox. We would be masking 5-year-olds in order to keep them from getting monkeypox.
Where do you put the mask, considering how it's spread? Where do you put the mask?
All right, this is a family safe environment.
I'm trying to keep it that way.
Yeah. On that note, moving right along. UK and transgender policies. What do you know? Here's the thing, and I think Mike will agree with me. If you are an adult and you decide or you believe that you want to transition to another gender and go through all of the medical procedures that you desire to go through in order to do that, more power to you. That's on you. That's your life. That's your body. We both, though, have, I think, issues with that being done when it comes to children, right? Because if you're a child, in particular, a young child, a prepubescent child, there's a lot of things that can be confusing. And the things that we're teaching kids in schools these days, well, it is even more, it's created more confusion, right? And well, what's happened is that in order to remove quote unquote confusion, you have people in the medical community who've decided, look, we're not gonna get in anyone's way. We don't want anyone to feel bad or dejected or rejected because they want to change their gender. So that has led to a lot of reaffirming, not just talk and support, but it's also led to medical decisions that are reaffirming of gender transformation or transition. Some of it has been through medication. Some medication that can have life-changing, life-altering effects, permanent effects is what I'm saying, and some that has resulted in surgery. Well, while the United States has been one of the leads in terms of pushing this reaffirming. Well, in the United Kingdom as well as in other places, they've actually started to back off of. The National Review calls it transgender mania. You can call it what you want. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but with what they're calling it, by the way. But the point is that what they've decided in the UK is that a lot of these people who are going through this gender reaffirming care are just confused, and many of them are actually turning around and regretting having made the transformation because guess what? They were going through a rough time. They were looking for acceptance, whatever it was, whatever they were going through. The point was that by not questioning it at all, they found that a lot of people are going through the transition, Mike, who probably never should have gone through the transition.
Now, are we talking completely through the transmission? Or?
Well, in some cases, you have some people who are advocating for teenagers to have breast augmentation surgery or mastectomies, where they're having their breasts removed. In some cases, you have people pushing or encouraging young prepubescent teens, especially teen boys, to take hormone blockers in order to keep them from experiencing puberty, so that they can be and appear more feminine or less masculine should they decide to go all the way through the transition. I don't know about the downstairs surgery. I don't know that anybody's really advocating for a lot of the downstairs surgery for minors.
The bananectomy, yeah, that's what it's called, I think.
He's trying not to say an inappropriate joke. I appreciate the effort, Mike. I really do.
I'm just curious. At what point are they stopping this? I obviously read a story with you, but is this something they're looking to stop completely? Are they looking to change the mindset? Because as you started out, you said, listen, nobody wants to have this conversation with these individuals that are wanting to transition because it'll make them feel bad, and we're worried about their feelings. It might be time to stop with everybody's feelings are 100% correct and we have to respect them all the time. If your child came to you and said, listen, Mom, I feel like beating a neighbor girl with a bat. That's really what I feel like doing. You'd tell them no, right? You know what's right and what's wrong and what they should be and what they shouldn't be doing. If you got to hurt somebody's feelings and tell them no, I think it's much better to hurt their feelings now instead of, as Greg just pointed out, 6, 8, 10 years later, after you've had the mastectomy and the hormone treatments for 10 years, and you're still 5'2", and now you want to be a man again.
Well, I think you just hit the nail right on the head. It's part of it is once again, our job as adults is to, at least what we try to do, is protect our children from bad decisions. And when you make a decision, when you're talking about a medical procedure or medication that will, once again, will permanently and can permanently alter you.
Yeah.
I just think that we ought to slow down when it comes to minors. And I think what they're talking about in the UK is rather than just being affirming, we need to also be confirming that that is in fact the case. That they are in fact, you know, dealing with gender dysmorphia, is because I think that's the medical term. But the point is that to make sure that that's actually what they're experiencing, and they're not just experiencing depression, loneliness, or there's not something else that is fueling this before they once again they make this permanent decision.
Yeah, yeah. Some sort of history of abuse, perhaps victim of a crime themselves. Yes, those are things that trigger those changes.
Right. Well, like I said, if the UK is doing it and people say, "Oh, we need to be more like Europe," well, then, hey, this is one example where I believe, yeah, we need to start backing off some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's odd to take the lead from Europe, but we know that their medical science tends to move quicker than it does here in the U.S. because of all the regulations we have. I remember you're dealing with smaller independent countries there that are able to put those things through and get things approved a lot quicker. Unlike here, where it's got to go through a 10-year process to get approved. Right. But if Belgium comes up with the cure to cancer, we'll know about it tomorrow. If the United States comes up with it, it's going to take 25 years to get it out there.
Right. But we have to be sensitive.
I got you sensitive. I'm going to use the back of my hand instead of the
righty.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
All right, moving right along. We've talked about this before, but there is actually now more evidence that's out there, so I had to bring it up again. There are new reports that show that the mass exodus from some of the places you and I both know are governed by the liberal left, and the liberal left has gone out of their way to destroy them. New report shows, and this was actually in the New York Post, new report shows New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles residents are scrambling for exits. Now, Mike, the funny part is that they're not just leaving. They're not just leaving and going to other states, but in particular in California. So, for example, in San Francisco, the number one location for people who are looking to relocate out of San Francisco is Sacramento, where I live. Right. So, in other words, they're selling their $1 million, 800 square foot homes in the Bay Area, and they're coming up here and they're buying houses cash. And then they're bringing their liberal left wing community destroying policies with them, right? Down in LA, the number one place they're looking is San Diego, which is odd because San Diego is just as expensive as LA, but not nearly as crime ridden, although the new liberals who are running San Diego are working on that. But they're also moving to Las Vegas, which is where we spend a week every year at SHOT. But they're working on turning that into that's the tail that wags the dog there in Nevada. That's what has turned Nevada into a liberal state. At least it's given them a Democrat majority, which I'm hoping and believing that after this election is going to come back our way. But the point being, folks are leaving these cities in droves.
Yeah, listen, that state's going to vote red this time because if you recall, Las Vegas was shut down completely for a long time, for over a year, because of the governor there. Now we know the mayor; she's a staunch Republican, a capitalist, a businesswoman, and she fought it tooth and nail. So just having her fought for that city and to get them back on their feet and to get them working again, I think that whole state turns red here in the next election, or this election coming up. So, but yeah, Craig, people are fleeing, running for the hills to get away from these cities. Now I know in New York, the last poll that they took a look at there, and this was pre-serious inflation. We're talking like over a year ago. They said it was something like 51% of the people that live in New York City cannot afford to live in New York City. However, they can also not afford to leave New York City. So it's a very weird space to be in for them. But yeah, listen, if you're going to go somewhere, you're going to go to that new state, don't take your old politics with you. I mean, unless they were good politics. By good, I mean they were right. So
this is the list. All right. This is showing you. So San Francisco, they're basically, you're looking at the number one top destination for people in San Francisco is Sacramento, California. And the top out of state is Seattle, Washington. And then we wonder why the Washington is, well, part of the West Coast wall of gun control. For Los Angeles, it's San Diego and Las Vegas. And there you go for New York City, right? Miami, Florida.
Yep. There you go, baby. Let's do it. Get
Right.
it done.
So Mike and I both are winding up having to, although Mike is not in Miami. He's at the other end of the state. Or are you more central?
I'm in the middle part of the state. Yeah.
That's right. You're more central.
Yeah.
Not that we want to reveal the location Bravo, but
It's in Central Florida. We'll say that. Yeah.
there you go, Central Florida. But they're moving to your state, so you're constantly fighting, which, by the way, is interesting when you consider that Florida has gone from a purple state to practically a deep red state.
Oh yeah, we have the gift of DeSantis here, so it's working out well for us. Yeah.
Captain Florida.
Yep. We got DeSantis, and it's and you can't have him yet. Feds National. You're gonna have to wait.
Well, I'm not interested in waiting. Anyway, on that note, look, I got Gavin Newsom, man. Look, we gotta end this. We've got to end this now. The only saving grace about him running for president is that if he does run for president, we'll be able to get rid of him 2 years ahead of time. That's really about it if he wins.
Oh, so they have to resign in your state to run for another office? Okay, gotcha. Yeah, some states. I don't know.
No, I'm saying if he were to win, that's the only upside.
Okay. Yeah, it's well, we don't want that here. So
I don't want it either. I'd rather deal with him for 2 more years as governor than him as president. It just not even.
Yep.
All right, so getting into this week's news with our parting shots, as you all know, the attack that took place on Mr. Pelosi. Glad to hear that he is out of the hospital, but interestingly enough, he does not appear to be talking about what occurred, and now we know why.
Yeah.
Because see, the first rule of Underwear Hammer Fight Club is you don't talk about Underwear Hammer Fight Club. Not
That's
funny?
right. And listen, Craig, if tonight's your first night at Underwear Hammer Fight Club, you're going to Underwear Hammer Fight tonight.
Yes, exactly. That's rule number 2. That's
right.
Now, in order for this basically to take place, now this is an interesting one because Mike, you brought this one up yesterday, and it's good to see that the folks out there in meme world, they're right there with you, right? They're like, look, I'm no expert, Facebook fact checkers, but in my opinion, when someone breaks a window, the broken pieces go inward. It's kind of interesting because when I look at this, I see glass both on the inside and the outside.
No, you see the light shining through the window on the inside.
All right, but that doesn't look like a little bit of glass there on the inside.
Nope,
I still don't know why there's glass on the outside. But
yeah, well, because nobody broke in, Greg. They broke out. They had to make this look that way.
There you go. Well,
This is if I walked up on this crime scene, it would take me about 12 seconds to go up to the homeowner and go, you know, it's a felony to report a false crime, right? Okay, never mind. and then we would leave. Yep.
Well, the problem has been solved because now we have witnesses to what actually occurred. Although,
good stuff.
I got to be honest. I recognize these guys from somewhere. Do you?
Yeah, it's MAGA country. These are the two white guys that beat up a Juicy Smouillet. Yeah.
Yes, these are the two MAGA supporters who said, basically this is MAGA country, and racially profiled Mr. Smouillet, and by the way, attacked him because he was both African American and gay.
That's right.
But yeah. Anyway,
yep.
Along
Juicy
that note,
Smouillet.
now we also know that Elon Musk purchased Twitter, and it was brought up by AOC, or otherwise known as Alex the bartender, that she was like, well, I cannot believe that you're going to charge that free speech is going to cost $8, and he has responded. Not only he responded, not only did he respond by saying your comment and opinion is appreciated. Now pay your $8. Well, the world is now ready to help her pay her $8, or at least she's trying to raise the money in order to be able to afford her blue check mark.
There you go.
So if you want to help
She's almost
AOC pay fund her blue check mark, all you gotta do is go to GoFundMe and click on the donate now, and you can give her $8 for this month.
You know, the good news for her, Craig, is looking at the numbers here. She's only $8 away. It's not that much money. So
There you go, only $8 away.
yeah,
But hey, in the event that GoFundMe doesn't work,
that's it. You got to have $8 to get into the tweeter now. The tweeter
yes,
club.
got to have $8 to get into the tweeter if you want to have a blue check mark. I'm still not. I still don't get the idea of a blue check mark. What the point of it is, because they only do it for certain people, and they make you go through this process that no one really knows how to go through or get through. But you know,
when it started out, remember when it started out, it meant you had a verified account. It meant
right.
that, you know, they knew that your posts were coming from a real place. And many times it was you proved who you were via identification or something like that. It meant you were verified, not some troll or some bot out there.
Right.
Now it's like you said, it's only for the liberal elite that they get to have it.
Right. Exactly. Well, all right, sir. Well, it's about that time to give another shout out to our sponsors.
That's right. Let's say a good weekend to our good friends over at Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net, hitmanindustries.net. Make sure you reach out to them for all of your AR, rifle, and pistol barrel needs. They'll take care of you. Say hello to our good friends at the California Republican Assembly, fighting a good fight behind enemy lines. It's an important time for them. Make sure you reach out this weekend. Reach out now. Just well, give me like 1 minute, then reach out. And then, of course, if you want some really good, awesome gear, some tactical gear, some web gear, go to our good friends at uscombatgear.com.
Thank you, folks. Please remember, visit our sponsors and let them know that the guys over at The Rundown sent you. And with that, it's been another fun week. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. Have a good weekend. If you get a chance, send a few downrange. And if not, well, hopefully you get a chance to turn a few up.
Yep. See you at Oktoberfest.
See you at Oktoberfest. Holler at you on Monday.